What we're gonna do right here is go back. 1, 2, 3, 4.
So,
will that be all?
actually, I really like the shirt that you're wearing. Do you have any of those around?
No, we don't have it here. It's only available at crowdershop.com. It's this Nazi show that I watch ironically. Everybody who has anything to do with it is a racist.
So you're ironically racist?
It's like wearing a swastika. It's hilarious. Stupid.
In that case.
.com. Head over to the shop, support the fight, and buy some cool threads. It's the Tits Pajamas. .com.
That was a damn good sip.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Slurpy.
My headphones, my ears are all messed up right now. Just so you guys know, I am very sick.
Aw.
I am very sick, sir.
Oh,
but
no.
Still test negative for COVID.
Dang it.
That's a shame.
Which is just
Cauliflower ear.
you tested negative for COVID,
I
Quarter
did.
Black.
I did too.
So something's been going,
Negative.
and you were sick.
Yeah.
So it turns out that you can still get sick and it not be
I didn't
COVID.
know that was possible.
That's rare.
I know.
What?
That's a good thing.
This
Well, it should be.
That being said, it's important to remember this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
Yes.
Yes.
So we're going to be talking about that today quite a bit, that this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. What level of protection is offered to you with the vaccine? According to international studies, according to the CDC, according to the World Health Organization, according to cohort studies, according to meta-analyses from Mayo Clinic, from Israel. We're going to get into that because this is something that has been repeated not by our president. And I know this is a little bit late, but our last show was Thursday. But I will say this before we move on. Some of the things that former Vice President Joe Biden said, and my wife said this was surprising because I've always been an optimist when it comes to the United States of America. You can go back to when Obama was president. You can go back to some defeats that Donald Trump ran into, and I always said, look, we have checks and balances. It's going to get better. I've never had the hair on the back of my neck stand up and chills go down my spine as when Joe Biden said, it's not about your freedoms, it's not about your choice, and our patience is wearing thin. This is a really, really scary time. This is unprecedented. And I really hope that we're not looking back at this moment as the moment that the America we knew ceased to be. And I'm not being melodramatic about it. I've never said that on this show before. That speech to me and that mandate was absolutely a line in the sand. And that has nothing to do with your personal choice to get vaccinated or the science regarding COVID, which is, of course, a serious condition. We talking about that. We'll be talking about the VMAs. We have... my favorite little Jewish gentleman, and I am his least favorite Gentile, Ben Shapiro, on the show.
Oh,
Nice.
that's right.
It's fantastic.
Ben Shapiro
little
on
bit.
the show. Do you know a true story about Ben Shapiro before we move on? He thought he was like, his hair was thinning here a little bit. And
well, that works out.
my wife said, like, well, I don't
Just
think your hair's
wearing
thinning.
down from the hat.
That's exactly what it was. And my wife was there. My wife said, I think, but that's where you wear your, is it kippah? He's like, yeah, it's a kippah, yarmulke. Either way, same thing. So she was like, I think that's just what it is. He was like, and you could see he was so relieved. Because his hair was fine everywhere else. So, and I really think that's what it is.
Perfect little
Love
ball
Ben
cap
Shapiro.
there.
He's always been a friend of mine, even if I disagree with him on
a
some
good
stuff.
guy.
But
Jews unique.
before we get to that, Gerald A., how are you?
I am better than you.
Yeah.
Sorry, buddy.
So far, yeah.
I did not. I was
You
not
did it.
patient zero for the office here.
You were.
It was not me.
It was you.
It was my son.
Well, we need to find a gay male flight attendant. And Quarter Black, how
What's
are
up?
you?
What's going on? I feel a lot better. I feel a lot better now that you have.
I'm so glad it wasn't sickle cell. And Dave Landau, who's going to be at the Albany Funny Bone September 20th. It's genetics!
It is.
September
true.
24th, 25th.
That's correct. Ahoy, everybody. And I think calling it a gay male flight attendant's a bit redundant.
Fair
point.
Are we in
That is
trouble
fair.
already?
No, as a grammatical Nazi,
I'm saying that-
and also incredibly homophobic. I agree.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
I had a male flight attendant, and I won't be redundant, so fill in the blanks. Say, would you like some extra water? And I just thought this was pre-pandemic when we could get water. And he just offered, but as he offered it to me, I was taking it, but he kind of went for my hand.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, no, I don't want to hold
The hand
I don't wanna
rub.
hold your hand."
No, I'm okay.
And
Thanks
now
a
I
lot.
just spilled this everywhere.
Oh, jeez. It's so off.
I don't know why Kleenex is not as absorbent as paper towels. When you think about it, it's like, yeah, you know what?
Made
We have
for
paper
snot.
towels
But
usually
it's
to clean up
soft.
soda on the counter.
Yeah,
Let's
it's
make
soft.
something less effective for phlegm and snot.
Yeah, that's not really what it's for.
Yeah, well,
And
tell
you know
that to
it's-
my sock drawer. So at this point,
Oh.
He played it perfectly.
we've all heard about the Texas abortion ban.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
And now the left's penalty for the Texas abortion ban is no more sex. But you really can't let that sink in until you actually, put the faces to the slogan. Until, you see Griswold, how it affects real folks.
Sex Strike. General Strike 2021, ladies.
Around and find out.
Hi. Broke boys and misogynists don't get any flowers. I know that's right.
And you don't get to go to the chocolate factory.
Ladies, we should not fuck another man. I think we should go on a sex strike.
Can we get that in writing?
Think about it. Like, full stop, no sex.
I like
None.
your yellow
not for a
teeth.
single man at all.
I'm just saying, historically, sex
Ah.
strikes
Oh.
have worked.
Hello, you fella.
Okay, cool. We're not having sex. Women are fine
Deal.
with this. No sex.
Abortion should be free of cost.
So that's just the
and
Charlie.
shame.
That's the Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. Only she
Sex
put on the
strike.
Not Without My Daughter. She's going to throw us off.
That's like Claire
Expect
Danes
Alfred
from
Molina
Homeland.
to come in and backhand her. No, sex strikes don't work because unless all prostitutes are on sex strike with you, not to mention
Women you want to have sex with?
Yeah.
As opposed to.
including there's a shortage in a lot of things, but not the polymer used for blow-up dolls.
Yeah.
You know that, Gerald B.
No,
this
I
is
don't.
this would be so offensive to me.
does.
You know, women. We have so many questions today, but I really want to know to women out there, and we have a significant amount of women who watch this show. It always surprises me because
Yeah.
I'm like, you are
Yeah,
really
that's true.
bought in. Comment below. This would be so offensive to me as a woman. The idea that you can't have sex and be responsible. No abortions, no sex. Okay, let's just say that you're totally against it and you don't even understand the science of the fact that you're ending another life, that you are terminating another heartbeat, not your own. You don't have two hearts. That's a fact. That's what this bill is. But at this same point, that they are just saying, well, you know what, if you do that, we can't possibly be expected to monitor our sexual activity, our sexual comings and goings.
There's no way.
Yeah, my issue with it is they always say that they have the equal sex drive. You're basically saying that you don't want sex as much as men. And when you say that women weaponize sex, it's supposed to be offensive.
Right.
And now you're weaponizing sex.
Right. Yeah. Well, in this case, they want people to believe they're weaponizing sex.
It's
They're
not much
Did you
of a
see
weapon."
how I weaponize sex? Look how little sex I'm having, guys. And everyone's like, okay.
I thought he was having
Yeah,
sex with you
good.
anyways.
Keep it up.
We just assumed.
Assuming
always land whales, too.
makes an
not gonna have
ass
sex
out
with
of
you.
you and me, and I am not having sex. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one girl looked like Gabriel Iglesias in a fright wig. I don't want to have sex with you. Oh, deal.
Okay, Fluffy.
The sexual
Yeah,
B
no
team
problem.
is taking a week off. That's fine.
Speaking of sex, and
I'm
look,
not fat, I'm fluffy.
either I'm an old fuddy-duddy, which is possible,
Or
we
I
have
wouldn't
reached
think
a
so.
state in our culture of complete and absolute degeneracy. Yesterday, the VMAs happened, the Video Music Awards for the Uninitiated.
They have videos still?
Yeah, I guess.
No.
No,
they
basically a
don't.
YouTube video. And boy, we've come a long way from, Elvis's gyrating hips and I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Right.
That's what it used to be like. I want
Used to be.
to hold your hand.
Yeah.
Like, well, what is he saying? Whereas now we're pantomiming sodomy in a shower.
Slippery slope, I guess.
Yes. Well, also don't run in the show.
Yeah,
don't
drop
run
the
in the
soap.
group sex shower with Anthony Fauci taking notes. So
They still just showed Elvis from the waist up, though.
yeah.
Yeah, because his hips were a bit too much.
And then Tom Jones, they showed him from the waist down almost exclusively on this show.
It's in his contract.
Nothing going on down there.
So this is what happened. If aliens accidentally intercepted a transmission, a broadcast of the VMAs, they would immediately become hostile.
A transmission?
Yes. We call them cis transmissions. I don't know. I guess it depends on the wavelength of the, I don't know.
Not sure.
Yeah.
5G's giving you cancer. Okay. Here's what's the first clip that we have?
Lil Nas X.
Wait, the first clip is Lil Nas?
Yeah.
Oh, this is the guy. This is the guy, by the way, who sold sneakers with vials of blood while doing a music video where he was giving Satan a lap dance. Also, didn't get the funniest part. Didn't get permission from Nike to put vials of blood in their shoes. He basically just went and bought a bunch of Nikes and then was just putting test tubes in them. And Nike's like, you can't do that.
But I'm gay though.
They're like putting used condoms and Reebok pumps. Just. So,
Gross.
anyways, this is
Gross.
the VMAs. Lil Nas's performance, pantomiming having sex in the shower.
I'm glad my father's dead. There's no reason anybody should have to see this from that generation.
And also, he praised himself over Twitter for the win, saying, video of the year, suck my C-O-C for people listening on audio. Which is a really weird reaction if someone was performing fellatio. It's like, It's like, what are you, angels with filthy souls? Get down on your knees and tell me you love me.
We should have seen it coming.
Lil Nas, I'm over the moon for you. So let's just think this is a one-off. Let's think this is a one-off. Another female singer, and I don't know, Normani.
Who even knows at this point?
You know what they just do is they spell something and they mispronounce it to try and accuse you of being too white.
Right.
Right.
Like, it's Normani. Oh, okay.
Sure. Nobody
I
could
couldn't have possibly known that.
Yeah.
Nor Alexa. Let's just roll a clip of this. It's just degeneracy all around. So that's a woman on a cross-ish. Gurney.
Pretty sure that's what they were going for, was the cross,
Yeah. Thanks, Dave.
You're very welcome, Gerald.
Now, look, first off,
I'm just confused of how it's music.
yeah. I'm just confused as to how it's art.
What is this?
Not to mention the questions of consent.
We stormed the beaches of Normandy for that?
Yeah.
Seriously?
If Hitler had two brain cells to rub together, he just would, instead of those machine guns, he just would have had those people right up there in the beach.
We're like, no, we're done.
And the Allies would be like, all right, we're out of here.
Are they twerking?
Just bomb it from the air.
The Scots
Right,
would have grabbed their little bicycle helmets that were completely impractical. Like, we're going home, boys.
Yeah, there's no reason to fight for these.
They're humping each other on gurney crosses. This nation's too far gone, and they even have the helmets that they don't, not the full Hitler, but the half Hitler. Ours just protect the top of my head unless someone's shooting me straight down.
They're all Billy Connolly.
And this is, well, you know what? I'll talk about this later. I went to a wonderful steak dinner with my wife. Sweetheart, I hope you're feeling better. She caught it too.
Oh, no.
And there was
Thanks
an
a lot,
epidemic
Gerald.
of older women now trying to dress this way. There was an epidemic of, pardon me, if you have kids here, of old fat whores. And I mean this, it said a 40-year-old birthday party. And there's no way it was 40. I have never seen more totality of breasts outside of an actual naked woman.
Yeah.
And I mean, these women were big. These women, they were lining up. It was a Brazilian steakhouse. They're at the salad bar, trying to keep up appearances, love. And they have skirts where you can see their panties and cellulite that looks like bullet wounds. I'm looking for the exit channel. And then this on a shelf, one lady had this skin-tight dress and was wearing a thong, so the spillover was like it was trying to escape. And you know what? Here's the thing. We've just told everybody that all women have earned all clothes. That's not true. It's not true. You haven't earned the right to wear those clothes. Just like I haven't earned the right to, go to the steakhouse salad bar in a thong.
Well, I don't think you should.
Well, you might as well now.
I go in assless chaps.
Yeah.
But that's
Free
just
the
because
ball.
the way I eat. I need to hurry to the restroom.
Dave goes to a different steakhouse.
Yes, it's
So this is something.
it is Brazilian though.
This doesn't just end, by the way, with VMAs. It would be one thing if it's the VMAs, but we talked about cuties on Netflix.
Yeah.
And I will say this does matter. Of course, we're talking about the culture at large, the hypersexualization of children. You look at Lil Nas, and who's sodomy in the shower. You look at that where she's humping somebody, which, by the way, women can't hump like that. That's just stupid.
Yeah.
It's biologically, it's nonsensical.
They don't know the rhythm.
But now this, and I just heard from my friend who went to go see Jungle Cruise, which he's no longer a friend, but
He just made that decision.
this is the new T-Mobile ad that you will see at movie theaters at a children's movie, and we have the whole thing, but we won't have to watch the whole thing, just so you see that we're not editing it out of context. You could take your kids, you could put on your internet blocker, you could put on your parental controls on the TV, you could make sure that VMAs has some kind of a word block and set to Google alerts, but you go to the movie theater, and with your 5-year-old kid, you still see this.
Girl, I'm busy. I'll call you back.
Oh, now that was extra.
Oh, you want extra? I'm about to unfold your world, honey.
What do you think? They're going to transport to a tea party? Oh, it's sex dominatrix.
Flip, fold, snap, clack, touch, screen, sleek, black. You, me, you wish. Flip, phone, who this? So long to that whack phone. Now work. Get your clack on. She back.
All right, that's enough. Look, it only gets worse.
Yeah, we get it.
Who do you think's calling? I bet not your family inviting you for Thanksgiving.
Clack.
I just
Clack. It's a flip phone, by the way.
And what I hate about this is a presumption. Like, it used to be, someone it's the sex symbol who, just sort of tosses the air and gives you a look. You're like, oh, we get it. But this person, you want it. No.
Nobody does.
The most offensive part is that you presume that anyone is even remotely interested outside of twisted folks who think this should be shown in front of children.
I have a question, though, and this is an honest question. Was that a woman?
No.
Ah, okay.
No,
I was confused for
Wesley
a second.
Dykes in Demolition Man.
Traveled back through time to ruin your
I'm just
childhood.
not sure.
Wait, no, I'm thinking of Time Cop. Is there travel in Demolition Man?
There's a little bit.
He's frozen, right?
Right, he's frozen.
It comes out later.
Well, you know what? Maybe someone can freeze me. Put me next to Walt Disney's head and swastika.
You don't want to be around.
There was a kid in a Time Cop shirt when I was in high school, and he went to fight my friend. And he was just about to step out to him. They were going to get in a fight in the hallway. And then my friend Sean walks out of this classroom, looks at me and goes, "Is that a Time Cop shirt?" And everybody just laughed at him, and it ended the fight.
Fight over.
And you lose. Nothing ends than pointing out your terrible shirt.
Takes it off. There's a Bloodsport 2 shirt. Shoot!
Dang it! Man, I gotta stop buying these.
But I love Jean-Claude.
I love Jean-Claude, yeah.
Takes it off. Blade Trinity. This was a bad choice.
Hey,
why do I wear so many T-shirts?
Steel Magnolias is the next one. We're like, that one's good. We all like it. Fried green tomato.
I'm not crying.
Fight's back on.
You're crying.
So here's something, too, that does... Look, when people talk... Remember when we used to talk about this, and they would say, oh, no one's coming for your kids. Look, I don't care. Of course, there's a certain percentage of the population that's gay. Kids who are gay, of course, if my kids were gay, love them just the same as anybody else. But a recent insider study found that there's a 222% increase in the number of LGBTQ characters in children's cartoons, programming, the kind of stuff that we see here. Now, keep in mind that they make up about anywhere from 2 to 5.6% of the population, but more than like 8 to 14% of couples on screen. So when people talk about representation, look, there is over-representation in the media. And it's designed to make people think that, I'm not just talking about LGBTQ, but look, look at the VMAs. It was the LGBTQ party.
Yeah.
There are no LGBTQ voting magazines.
I mean, they're playing to their base, so nobody else is watching the VMAs.
I would like to see the LGBTQ advocate go out there and pull an Elliott Smith Miss Misery from the Oscars just in a white suit at a piano and be like, by the way, I love dick, bye. Like, oh! We had no idea. What a good role model. It says, click, clack, it's like, it's enough.
Yeah, Elton John did it for 30 years, 40, 50.
Yeah, it's
old. People are like, feathered boa. Who really cares?
Yeah, because he was great.
He was a fantastic performer.
Talented man.
Great.
This is like the only defining character now, or characteristic, I should say, of artists. It's like, oh, it's because I'm pushing this envelope, not because I can sing, dance, play, whatever it is. It's just that I'm that.
Well, we've gone so far back now where we've told kids that they should find their self-esteem in nothing but the superficial.
Yeah.
If you were to watch the VMAs, you wouldn't think, oh, you know what, I should go out and be a good person. And this, no, you would just go, oh, this is what makes me valuable.
Right.
It's the same thing with a lot of young women today. They don't just say, hey, if you're morbidly obese, maybe you're really smart, maybe you're really talented at something else, and maybe you should be healthy and lose weight. It's, no, you should find pride in your identity in something skin deep. It's this reverse kind of narcissism that they don't understand. You're breeding kids who simply feel entitled to have self-esteem because of how they look, regardless of how offensive they may look.
Yeah. Well, and don't next time you blame the patriarchy for sexualizing women, I'm just going to have Exhibit A. Like, we didn't do this. You
Click,
chose this.
clack, fold, fack.
Well, this is what happens when you withhold sex.
All of a sudden, Lil Nas starts looking. It's like when you're on an island and your friend starts turning into a hot dog.
Yeah, you're like,
By the way, speaking of all this, you can follow me on the Instagram and apparently on TikTok, because we're still trying to fight the degeneracy where it lies for as long as they allow us. And hit the notification bell, guys, if you're on YouTube. That's the best thing. Not the subscription thing, but hit the notification bell so that you know when we're broadcasting. On this channel, the Steven Crowder channel, it's Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
We had to start late today because YouTube was screwing with us. And, of course, we'll be taking your live chat at Mug Club for an additional 45 minutes. All right, another thing before we get to the vaccine crap. Over the weekend, there was a Evander Holyfield, Vitor Belfort fight, which whoever sanctioned this should be lined up and shot.
No, they're lining their pockets with cash.
Yes.
That's all it is.
But we should shoot holes through the cash in their pocket through their crotch.
I've seen movies where the cash actually stops the bullet. Is that not
That's
true?
true.
I don't know that that's
I watched
I don't think that's
Mythbusters.
true. Yeah.
I have
it
no
really
idea.
is just all Rocky 5.
Yes.
Like, you're not going to win.
You're not. Yeah, you're not.
Just as you just beat up an old man.
Yeah. A 58-year-old man, Evander Holyfield.
Missing an ear.
And I thought he was actually going to do better because he was a boxer. But anyway.
Oh, he was amazing.
Donald Trump was there commentating. We had his son on the show, if you want to see, last Thursday.
Yeah.
And the crowd was seen chanting. And this is not a political rally. This was a fight night. Right. This could easily be just a random sampling of the country chanting, "We love Trump," followed by a chant about the most popular president in history, 80 million votes, Joe Biden. This happened organically.
Special Warriors.
We're still going strong.
That's good.
That's great.
It's been going around stadiums in college football for the last couple of days.
Well, it's a great honor, and thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, very much. We love our country. I love our country. Thank you very much.
Well, I know 81 million people that aren't there.
Yeah. Apparently they decided to take the day off from fun. Here's another patriotic chant that's been making the round at college football games. And here's the thing. At multiple games.
Yeah.
It's almost like a movement. It's like owling or planking or the ice bucket challenge.
Yeah.
Only they chant this.
I love college football.
It's hilarious.
Joe Biden. Joe Biden.
Goes on for a while. And you can hear that echoing throughout the stadium.
The Big House, Michigan.
Oh, yeah. You know when U of M is chanting this, there's hope.
Right. Well, that's Ole Miss. I think I expect it there.
Well, yeah.
And it keeps going. There's more.
Oh, there's
They're gonna
more.
cut 'em.
We have a ton more. We can probably
I think
upload
there's
the
so
crowd a
many.
bit.
Wasn't their first black player in like 78?
Yeah.
98, Dave. 98.
98. I forget the words.
Yeah.
Yikes.
And then they said, our team is bad.
Yeah, we just.
At what point does
Get some brothers
racism
in
cost us wins?
What I love about this is that these are young people doing this. Those are student sections.
Yeah.
Not typically known to be super solid core Republicans. Like, you tend to be a bit liberal liberal in college.
Yeah.
Pretty
These are
sure
new
the
students.
Ann Arbor, Michigan, pretty liberal.
Yeah, relatively
Little bit.
liberal.
Little
But a lot of people who go to the games are people who are coming in from outside the actual city.
That's true.
Because a lot of the people who live in the city are like, oh, they're having a football game. I hate how much it stimulates the economy.
Physical activities. Ugh.
The only reason anybody would go to Lansing or Ann Arbor and that state for Michigan State, Michigan.
It's
That's it.
barbaric.
I only go to Lansing to burn something down.
I lived in
It's true.
Lansing.
Yeah?
And I burned stuff down.
Yeah. You usually end up burning down your own life in Lansing.
You do. That's what I
It
was
is an
referencing.
awful, awful place, Lansing, Michigan.
Yeah.
And I say this as a Michigander. There's no reason to go there outside of protest.
Well, it's not really a protest. If you win or lose a basketball game, you set a car on fire.
That is what happens. Just like Montreal.
Either
It's
way.
like, hey, man, did the Habs win? Yeah, we're going to riot and loot. Hey, man, did the Habs win? No, they lost. See, we're going to riot and loot, man.
I got all these matches.
I got the gasoline. Today's going to be fun.
It's going to be a good day. I watched this. This is how I learned about communism as a kid. How I learned about anarchy, I should say. I've told the story before. But the Montreal Canadiens, I believe, lost the playoffs. And so there was a big riot. And this used to happen in Montreal all the time. People can just run a quick search. And this was on television. They're covering the riots. And this one guy breaks, it was either a Levi's or a Gap window. He breaks the window and he grabs a whole stack of jeans, right? And he gets up on a cop car and goes, "Hey!" And then this slightly bigger guy takes one step up the cop car and just grabs his stack and walks away with it. Hey! And as a kid, I was just laughing, like, what do you think was going to happen? Anarchy. The slightly bigger guy takes the stuff that you stole from somebody else.
That's how it works.
You just gathered it for him, essentially.
All right, let's talk about that next time, the Biden droning the wrong person, because it happens all the time. Here's something with Anthony Fauci, the expert.
Just
It's sad, it happens all the time, but right now we have Ben Shapiro's going to be
It's just funny that it's so common you just glaze over something so terrible. You're like, I did another whoops-a-daisy with the drones.
He did another whoops-a-daisy, killing the wrong guy who was not working for the government. But you know what? Hey, people either care that our countrymen were hung out to dry, or you don't. At this point, I don't know that I can really convince you.
Yeah, that's true.
Seeing record number of resignations from the military right now. So Fauci, of course, the expert on nothing. This surprised me. This was over the weekend. He had no answer. And this is something I've always talked about with the media. And we're going to get into the pandemic of the unvaccinated here. He had no answer as to why, which is being recommended by doctors across the country. And I've always thought it was just a little bit odd because it does seem like we're in new territory. I've never been requested by a healthcare practitioner myself to be vaccinated for something that I've already had. Not talking about seasonal flus because that changes.
Well, yeah.
And this is just anecdotal, but Dr. Fauci was asked on CNN what they thought was a softball. I think it was CNN. Maybe it was ABC. I have no idea.
Yeah, CNN.
It was CNN. People who were previously infected with COVID, why they should get the vaccine.
Yeah.
Here's his non-answer.
What are people to make of that? So as we talk about vaccine mandates, I get calls all the time. People say, I've already had COVID, I'm protected, and now the study says maybe even more protected than the vaccine alone.
No, not maybe.
Should they also
Absolutely.
get the vaccine? How do you make the
Irrefutably.
case for them?
You know, that's a really good point, Sanjay. I don't have a really firm answer for you on that. That's something
you were the
we're going to have
expert.
to discuss regarding the durability of the response. The one thing the paper from Israel didn't tell you is whether or not, as high as the protection is with natural infection, what's the durability compared to the durability of a vaccine. So it is conceivable that you got infected, you're protected, but you may not be protected for an indefinite period of time.
Okay, hold on a second. Is that, and that's okay, you can go, Joe, because you were talking about the World Health Organization. I don't know anyone in the legitimate medical community who is saying that natural immunity is less robust than the vaccination.
Yeah.
I've only heard that natural immunity is obviously more effective. And here's, again, what you're not hearing is how many people who've had COVID have gotten it again. We did a story on that about a year in, and there were 0. There may be more than 0 now.
There are.
But certainly not nearly as many as people who've been vaccinated. Right. How do you know? Because they've talked about making boosters mandatory, because that immunity was wearing off. Not so with people who have natural immunity. Now, I'm not saying if you haven't had COVID that the vaccine makes, this is a decision that you have to make. But to act as though natural immunity could in any way be less effective than the vaccine, you are not following the science. It's not maybe, it's not allegedly. It's not supposedly. It's, of course, natural immunity is more effective than what you get in the vaccine, period. We all know that. Now, answer the question, Dr. Fauci, and he can't.
No, he can't. And what we know is that natural immunity actually, you've trained your body. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to get too specific. I don't want to get us kind of kicked off of you two here.
Or not.
The body is going to, I'll just say it this way, the body will fight a virus that it's already had differently than a vaccine will that does not kill the virus. This vaccine has never been about killing the virus. It's just about making your outcome better, making sure you don't die, making sure you don't have as high of a hospitalization.
Well, they changed the definition of protection.
That's true. That's true. But then
a vaccine.
With a straight face, Dr. Fauci pivots and says, but we don't know how long that's going to last. I'm like, I don't know. How long has the vaccine efficacy lasted?
Yeah.
We're at 8 months in, Doc. Well, we're already concerned.
Take your booster and wash your hands.
And like it.
Yeah. So you're telling me what you think. Here is what he said. I think that you getting COVID will actually have a shorter duration of efficacy than 8 months. Roughly. That's what he's kind of thrown out there because he's like, well, we just don't know how long it's going to last. Yeah, maybe it's going to be better for you. You're saying it's less than 8 months or right about there.
Anyone find me any science? Anyone out there? This is comment. We have all of our links available at loudearthcrowder.com. Anyone out there, do you have any published scientific papers that, by the way, meet the same stringent requirements that you have for any other drug, for any other medication, for any other vaccine, that suggest, even for a moment, that vaccination immunity is more long-lasting or more effective than natural immunity?
Well, why do you need a booster then?
Well, you just don't.
Dave,
you just ruined it. Now people aren't going to search, Dave.
Well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do your work for you. I'm just so his answer was just confusing. Every time anybody asks him anything, he just throws out words until halfway into what he says, you go, I don't care.
Yeah, tune out.
I'm just going to hit my Fauci bobblehead and see what it says.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You can use a magic 8-ball, and it's more effective than him.
Well, it just makes common sense.
I'm hoping that what happens here is that Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all the people out there who are censoring misinformation will actually censor Fauci because the WHO just came out and said that they don't necessarily, they say that we should pause the booster conversation right now. They're not sure.
The WHO.
This is not completely definitive, but this is what the WHO said, which Dr. Fauci just a couple of days ago.
By the way, also the WHO said that lockdowns were catastrophic.
Right.
I remember that. So it just depends on, at that point, then you have people at Facebook like, oh, who do we go with, WHO or CDC? I just wish they could have a meeting behind our backs.
They'll get it together in a few days.
Yeah, they'll get in the same room and they'll figure it out. Yeah. And by the way, this is what's also important. If the goal is to get us back to normal, if the goal is to get people off of perpetual welfare, if the goal is to get businesses back into operation, if the goal is to try and eliminate the staggering record high inflation that we've seen quarter over quarter, then the science matters. If you've had the virus and your natural immunity is more effective than the vaccine. In other words, we do not have right now a protocol. We do not have a plan in this country that even takes into account whether you've had COVID or not.
Not at all. You can't do that for Joe Biden's thing. Over 100 employees, you have to get tested or vaccinated. It doesn't say, and if you've had it, you just have to show proof of antibodies.
It doesn't matter.
How do you get back to normal if you have a mandatory vaccine and a president coming out saying what he said? Just an honest question.
No, I think that's a good
point. Not to be thrown off YouTube. I'm
you
just
know what?
wondering,
Just
what
wash the
normal
taste out of your
be?
mouth and go watch some Lil Nas.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
Go watch some Lil Nas and remember America in the days of apple pie and white picket fences and sodomy in the showers.
Yeah.
So this didn't stop, by the way, Dr. Fauci from signaling his support for mandatory vaccines for all air travel in public schools.
Oh, wow.
Again, regardless of whether you've had the virus or not. And what's important here, too, is I was watching CNN this morning, and it's not just what you see in the news, it's what they don't tell you. That's what's very important. In other words, if ever you feel as though you're getting something incomplete, going, wait, hold on a second, what is the immunity? With that story, what is the immunity if you already have the virus?
Yeah.
They'll never bring it up.
No,
They'll never
matter.
discuss
Next
it.
story.
It's a non-issue. Same thing with this doctor on CNN who I was watching this morning.
Dr.
Leanna Wen is her name. You've probably seen this crazy communist. I don't have evidence for that, but if I had to bet, she's probably banging Eric Swalwell.
A little hyperbole, but it's okay.
She said as an authoritative source on CNN, she's CNN's medical analyst and Washington Post contributing columnist. There you go. That'll get a nice seat on a board at a think tank. Here's her this morning, I believe.
We need to start looking at the choice to remain unvaccinated the same as we look at driving while intoxicated. That you have the option to not get vaccinated if you want, but then you can't go out in public. Because when you go out in public, you have the potential of infecting other people with a potentially deadly disease. Just
Potential.
you can choose to drink in private if you want, but if you get behind the wheel of a car and can endanger other people, there is an obligation by society to prevent you from doing that. So I think what President Biden did today is exactly right to say that the vaccinated should not have to pay the price for the so-called choices of the unvaccinated anymore.
So-called
Although,
choices.
to your point, Chris, I definitely wished that he had also announced some type of proof of vaccination.
Okay, good. Remember, by the way, when they said even Dr. Fauci, maybe someone can bring this up from the control room, because just like masks, he said you're not going to be able to mandate people to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
He said, if the people won't, you can't force them to. Right now, saying this so-called choice.
You mean freedom?
I mean, whenever I'm unvaccinated, I tend to, swerve all over, hit people on bikes, fight a cop.
Here's something else. The reason that's a bad analogy, you actually can drink at home and then drive.
Yeah.
Provided you're not over the legal limit and you're not inebriated. People do it all the time. In some states, I don't know if it still is, but in some states, you could drink while in the car, because the point wasn't, is there alcohol in the car? It's, are you inebriated? Does it harm your mental faculties? Are you unable to make reactions in time? So it's not a valid comparison.
No.
Also, let's compare that risk to that of COVID. If you're making a risk assessment program, the whole thing here is this is always done under the guise of the greater good. She's saying, well, it's not really a choice because your decision affects me. Well, remember when people were told your decision to not be vaccinated doesn't affect the because the vaccinated can't catch it?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what we were until the definition was changed.
Well, plus, I've done some research, and I do know the effects alcohol has on the body.
Yes.
As opposed to the answers we're getting for the vaccine.
You followed the science.
I followed the science.
He did field research.
Yeah.
Yes. I did. I did a field sobriety research.
And then woke up in a field. What is this? What? I just gotta. What happened last night? Just Lil Nas. Ha 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 ha. Suck my high. Like, he won another award.
90 days in community service for a vaccine.
Where's my pants?
And here's something else too, just to give you an idea. This person who's a medical expert, and this is also why medical experts. First off, they may not necessarily be medical experts. I've done some research into Liana Wen here, and this is someone who's presented to you on CNN as unbiased. No, this is not. This is a leftist activist, of course. My problem is not if you're left, if you're right. It's if you lie to me about it. She's dishonest about it. She's not forthcoming about it. And CNN certainly is not forthcoming about it. But let's assume that she was an unbiased doctor. Let's assume that Fauci was an unbiased doctor. That also doesn't make them constitutional lawyers.
Right.
Yeah.
This is an issue that people need to understand is these people have a lane, and their only tool is a hammer, so they look at every problem as a nail. That's why you get to the point where the CDC says we have the authority to screw landlords and tell people they don't have to pay rent.
Yeah.
What? Why? Public health crisis. But that's unconstitutional. That's a violation of my property rights. I don't know anything about that. I just know the vaccine, and there's a lipid layer, the virus, the microbe. The point is, it's too scientific for you. We're going to take your property. So she also said right here, case in point, that she claimed unvaccinated Americans actually, as far as she knows, don't have a right to travel.
But there's an even bigger reason, too, which is I think we really need to make it clear that there are privileges associated with being an American, that if you wish to have these privileges, you need to get vaccinated. Travel and having the right to travel interstate, it's not a constitutional right as far as I know to board a plane. And so saying that if you want to stay unvaccinated, that's your choice. But if you want to travel, you better go get that vaccine.
Oh, well, it's funny that she should mention that because there actually is a right to travel.
Oh, really?
Established for the 1999 case, Sines versus Roe. A lot of Roes in these big cases.
Yeah, what's up with all these Roes?
Is this just Roe showing up at the Supreme Court like, Roe, quit showing up in our higher courts. The hell are you doing?
Again.
So it includes...
Sorry, Tubin just cracks me up that he's
in the battle. Yeah.
I will never look at that guy and he's just thinking like, I can't wait till she's done talking so I can start fapping.
I've got a highlight reel of the VMAs and a bottle of Lubriderm that won't take care of itself. So
I'm harder than astrophysics. Just waiting for this idiot to quit babbling.
So just go back to Eric Swalwell's dungeon.
I like his farts.
Is that
So
weird?
the 1999 case, Sines versus Roe, it includes the rights of citizens to move freely between states. So she actually says there's no right to that as far as I know. Okay, well, we've established now all the sources are available, loudercutter.com. You don't know. It is a right. And this is the issue. When they say, well, no, we don't know about the rights, therefore they don't exist. Well, hold on a second. There actually is a right. Hold on a second. Wait a second. The CDC doesn't have that. Those are private property rights. You can't force someone who actually owns that property to have to allow someone to stay there rent-free for 9 months. That's their property. That's a violation of actual property. I don't know what property rights are. And on CNN, it's good enough for everyone there. I think that was Chris Cuomo in that last one. It was like, there's no right to travel in America as far as I know. I was like, good point.
Yeah, nobody fucked that.
There's not one person to go, wrong.
Well, you didn't have to do that. Just hedge it and say, well, I don't know if there is, but it kind of sounds like there might be because we can do it. So what are you saying? Every road that goes into another state has to have a checkpoint where you show your papers? Like, I'm vaccinated, I get to go through here, or I'm not vaccinated, I guess I got to turn
this
back.
Conditional freedom is just disgusting.
Well, there's a reason we don't put doctors in charge of everything. We said this at the very beginning of this. There's a reason that they advise the president, because the president has to take into consideration a ton of other things, like, I don't know, having an economy and a life.
There's a reason you don't put doctors in charge of hospitals. Most of them aren't even employees. You know that? A lot of them are contractors.
Doctors?
Yeah, depending on the hospitals. You have business managers manage the hospitals.
There, yeah.
This is something. It doesn't mean that they know how to manage an economy.
No, and also freedom. They not to understand that.
Well, they don't care. It's a constitutionally recognized right to travel.
Yeah.
And Dr. Leanna Wen, who's completely unbiased at CNN, says, not as far as I know, and she can't even be bothered just to run a quick Google search. Like when Barack Obama or Joe Biden say 77 cents on the dollar, you're like, oh, well, that's been debunked by every single economist. That's why we know it's a lie. By the way, she's a completely honest scientist cited by CNN who just so happened to be the head of Planned Parenthood. Just so you know, while we're talking about science, hey, where does life begin? What does Planned Parenthood believe? If it's past the 6-week mark, do you have 2 hearts? What about when a lot of abortions are performed in the second trimester? Does a woman have 20 fingers? Does a woman have 20 toes? Does a woman have a vagina and a penis if this happens to be in her body? Her body, her choice. Where does that end? Planned Parenthood says, we don't care about the science anymore. It needs to be taxpayer funded, on demand, absolutely, period. And the really funny part about Leanna Wen is that in January of 2020, I don't want to assume that she's carrying the water for the Chinese Communist Party at this point. She wrote this article. CNN, just to be clear, Leanna Wen, YouTube, just so you don't autocorrect this. We have the source available at loudwithcrowd.com, Baltimore Sun. Wow. Leanna Wen wrote this, that the flu is more lethal than COVID in 2020.
When did she write that?
She wrote it in
2020.
I guess the science changed.
Yeah, maybe the science changed. That's fine. But the Constitution doesn't, sweetheart. So there's a life lesson for you, and you're probably not going to get it from Tubin.
No,
you just hear the hand of one. You just hear the sound of one hand clapping.
Yeah, different life lessons.
They've gone to full body shots of him all the time. It's never from the waist up anymore. It's like no. To protect ourselves, we have the full Tubin shot.
We need to cover all of it.
They need to make sure they don't let him stand until they make sure the cameras are
that
off.
might
Both of his hands have to be on the screen at all times. Like he can't have anything go below.
Just the level of hypocrisy, though, of him existing on that platform still is amazing to me.
It's always the best when they have to talk about some scandal like Harvey Weinstein or Me Too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or like, and the CNN legal analyst Jeffrey Tubin, he's just like,
Well, when I went through it really sucked to be on the other end of that.
Well, I don't have a ruined ficus like Harvey Weinstein.
That
I was on a plane yesterday, and there was a guy, I'm not kidding, it was a white guy with black toes. I don't know what it was. I don't care for it. And his skin was peeling. And he was wearing flip-flops, because why wouldn't you want to show the world that? But if that guy's allowed on a plane, I'm allowed on a plane. I mean that.
He's carrying leprosy,
ruined.
and
I kept looking over at it. I was like, what?
if Jeffrey Tubin is allowed on a plane, the unvaccinated should be allowed on planes.
That's true. He pulls out his laptop. Everybody's like, well, it's going to be a mess.
Yeah.
I got to deal with this.
This is another segment we have here before we move on to the pandemic of the unvaccinated and Ben Shapiro. We're going to do a new segment here called Curious Coincidences, where we simply have to point out crazy coincidences, and I want to be clear here. I want to be very clear that occur in daily life, because a lot of people sometimes think it's fate. A lot of people think that there's a connection. No, these are coincidences that have occurred that are completely unexplainable and are totally unrelated. So in no related fashion whatsoever, coincidences that we just find interesting because the universe wills them to be. So let's go to Curious Coincidences. Just to be clear, completely unrelated.
Yep.
I have no idea how this happens.
Weird coincidence.
It's just the cosmos.
Yeah.
Someone gets sick.
Just happens.
So did you know that the emergency use authorization of COVID-19 vaccines, so it's the Emergency Authorization Act, it requires that there be no safe or existing treatments? So the difference between a normal approval is there needs to be an emergency authorization because there's nothing else available, which makes sense.
Okay.
And I would support if there's nothing else available because at that point you're taking the risk.
Yeah.
It makes total sense. In a completely unrelated note, a paper published in The Lancet in May of 2020 that said hydroxychloroquine didn't work for COVID was retracted after the authors were unable to confirm that any of the data was accurate. Also, not part of the segment, completely unrelated. The vaccine mandate is for a lot of these companies. You have to be mandated to be to vaccinate your employees. Vaccinate 100 or more, which affects over 80 million Americans.
Yeah.
Or a negative test once per week. Every single person. There are no tests.
Yeah.
Go try and find some tests right now.
It's almost impossible.
About 4 weeks ago, you get them everywhere. Get home tests everywhere.
Yep.
I don't know what happened.
Well, and they're not
available
free.
nowhere. Completely unrelated.
They're probably going to make you. They're probably going to say, "Hey, you have to go buy your own tests."
Well, that's the problem, and I think that it was like $30 when I bought one a little while ago, and that really is the problem. You're just saying like, "Oh, what? It's not a big deal." A lot of people don't have money to pay for a test every 5 minutes.
Right.
I do.
So you're just think about it this way. Think about it this way. If you're doing the testing, right, and it's not one of those rapid tests right there, they're being sent in. Now somebody who has COVID who wants to get, what is it, a PCR test? Is that what they're called? The ones you send in? They have to wait on 50 million, 20 million, 10 million, however many people choose not to do this. Now they have to wait on that. Can they handle that capacity? Because mine took over 3 days to come back, which means I could have been spreading all over the place.
That's because you had to resend it. You're not supposed to pee on the stick.
Well, spreading all over the place.
I thought that's what you did.
Yeah, well, no, that's what you said you thought you did.
Oh, he's always spreading.
Him and Tubin.
I got the
all right, so before we have Ben Shapiro on the show here, this is something I really wanted to talk about today. So right now, this is what we've been told, is trust the science. Mm-hmm. And by the way, science is something that changes, at least if you're trusting science, not the science.
Right.
That this is a pandemic entirely of the unvaccinated. And we just had the president basically wage war on anywhere from a quarter to a third of Americans, depending which statistics you use, blaming this pandemic on people who really initially, according to the science, should have no effect on those who are vaccinated. So this is also not true, and it's acknowledged to not be true right now. But let's start with the blame game and the bone-chilling thing. I've never been this scared for our country as when I listened to this speech live from former Vice President Joe Biden.
This is not about freedom or personal choice.
Yes,
My job as president is to protect all Americans. So tonight, I'm announcing that the Department of Labor is developing an emergency rule to require all employers with 100 or more employees that together employ over 80 million workers to ensure their workforces are fully vaccinated. This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated, and it's caused by the fact that despite America having unprecedented and successful vaccination program, despite the fact that for almost 5 months, free vaccines have been available in 80,000 different locations, we've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin. And your refusal has cost all of us.
I guess it's a good thing that nobody gives a shit. How about that? My patience is wearing thin. We offered it to you free, but when you didn't take it for free, we're going to force you to do this. This isn't about your freedom or your personal choice. Well, if former Vice President Joe Biden says so. This is and what is this? The Department of Labor.
Yeah.
At the same time, the CDC is the one who basically bypassed the courts with the eviction moratorium. The Center for Disease Control is saying, landlords, you're still on the hook for the mortgage, and renters, doesn't matter if you're Michael Keaton in Pacific Heights, you can't be kicked out.
Yeah. Well, he's going around Congress both times.
He's going around Congress both times, and I will say this. Look, to people out there, now we have, a third of nurses.
Yeah.
A third of nurses who are going to walk on this job right now. That's a labor shortage. That is significant, right?
Yeah.
People are getting really upset with the vaccine mandates. And keep in mind that number is probably not going to change much because a large portion of people who are refusing to get the vaccine are people who've already had COVID, which is not even entered into this equation, former Vice President Joe Biden. It's vaccine. Well, what if I already had it? Well, you still got to get the vaccine anyway. But that's not common practice. That's not the norm here. That's not what the science tells us. But Fauci says we don't really know. So to be on the safe side, get a vaccine even though you already had the virus. Even though we don't necessarily know how your body reacts to that if it's already fought off the virus. Look, this is right now everyone out there. If you are working for a company and you have chosen not to be vaccinated for whatever reason, and this is a choice that everyone can make. I've advocated some people be vaccinated who I think are at risk.
Yeah.
And I think for some people, they choose not to, and it makes sense for them. Just to be clear, I don't know who is vaccinated and who is not in this office. Let me tell you why. Because it's none of my business. Just like the president has no right to tell companies that they have to force people to be vaccinated. This is over 80 million Americans. If you are in that company and you don't want, and you have chosen not to be vaccinated, don't do it. This is your line in the sand. I'm not saying don't get vaccinated just because you don't. I'm saying if you already chose to, do not allow this pressure to change your decision. This is far beyond the pale. I've never had the hair on the back of my neck stand up as I did with, at least Barack Obama would cover it and talk about what a great nation this is.
Yeah.
You have a guy here saying it's not about your freedom or your choice. The people who just shrieked about a heartbeat bill, which there can be no debate about the fact that the law says you can't stop a heartbeat that's not your own. All right, and by the way, all evidence, let's run through this really quickly. Evidence shows that it's disingenuous, giving that as many as 1/3 recent vaccinations are among the vaccinated.
Yeah, to
All
say that we
sources-
have unprecedented results.
Right.
Makes no sense.
It makes absolutely no sense. Does one third of America have smallpox? Is 1/3 of America a Doc Holliday? TB right now?
I'm your huckleberry.
And this is all sources are available, loudercrowd.com. I think the vaccine does help in reducing caseload and making it less likely that you go to the hospital. Let's be really clear.
Yeah.
But that's not why most people got the
what this is
vaccine.
about.
They were told that they would not catch it. And so now people are saying, well, the goalposts have changed. And you've changed where my freedoms are allowed to be infringed. So now you get people who are more and more uncomfortable. We actually have a perfect example of a case study. And this is something that I found interesting, and hat tip to there was some message boards that talked about this. In June, NBC, and I remember this story, declared a victory for the Blackfeet Nation, the guy on your flight.
Yeah.
The Native American Blackfeet Nation achieved a 90.
Old dark toes.
I wear flip-flops because my ancestors shopped at PacSun.
So Blackfeet Nation, they had achieved a 98% vaccination rate.
Wow.
This is from NBC. The CDC also attributed a 33-fold reduction in COVID-19 incidents in the Blackfeet Nation from October 2019 to November 2020. This is what they said: enforcement of stay-at-home orders and mandated use of face coverings in public with potential fines and jail, fines for being unmasked. So that's great. In other words, this was great. This was 98% vaccination. It was gone, and this was written about everywhere, despite being a small sample size, which, by the way, I will readily admit didn't stop NBC from running on the homepage, except now. It turns out COVID's back, and they've had to reissue mask mandates
what the heck?
after cases have surged.
Weird.
I'll be darned.
That's so sad to hear.
And actually, our next guest probably knows all about this. We won't bring him on right now, but the data from Israel is also reflecting a pretty damn concerning trend. So, as of August 31st, I want to make sure I'm reading this so I have it absolutely right. All sources are available at loudercrowd.com. All the references. You can go and read the entire articles for yourself if you are unemployed or retired. 78% of Israel's eligible population vaccinated. In August, half of the 600 Israeli COVID cases had received 2 shots of the vaccine. Wow. Half of them in hospitals, to be clear. Now, people say overall it's lower. Sure, but then Israel was saying, well, maybe we need to go with a third booster. That might actually need to be policy right away. In June, the UK also reported 26 deaths among 4,087 cases of the fully vaccinated from February to June 2021 versus 34 deaths in 35,000 cases amongst the unvaccinated. As of August 16th, 60% of all gravely ill COVID patients in Israel were fully vaccinated. Now, I just came back from, now I'm not saying that when you look at the data, it seems like vaccines seem to reduce the severity of it.
Right.
But that's not why most people out there were vaccinated. This is what matters. The goalposts move. People weren't told, hey, you'll get vaccinated, it'll be a 50-50 shot, but it won't be that bad.
Yeah.
Well, and the difference between making your own choice to get that vaccine and being forced to by
Right.
government
that's a big
is
difference.
really what the problem is.
Right, and I want to go to your point real quick, but I know we have Ben Shapiro coming up
go
here.
ahead.
So I was just at Mayo, by the way. I had the surgery, and I have a cold right now, which caused me to sneeze. And I actually asked my surgeon, the head of thoracic at Mayo, and I said, hey, just so you know, like I have a cold, I tested negative for COVID, but I'm sneezing regularly. And given that this is post-thoracic surgery, my medical question is, what's the most effective way to kill myself and make it look like an accident? And she was not amused. Something about HIPAA, I don't know. But if you see me sneeze, I just don't want to use a Walther sponsorship. So just shoot me, kill me in any way that doesn't involve a Walther.
You told me it's
if you
incredibly
see me
painful.
start to sneeze,
Yeah.
it's a 9 on 10. It's the third most painful. It feels like every rib breaking.
Oh, Lord.
So anyways, but Mayo, they do their, if anyone here wants to say, well, that's flawed, what I'm about to tell you, well, it comes from Mayo. This is a legitimate medical institution.
Yeah.
The best. I've talked about it. If you have something wrong with you and people can't figure it out, go to Mayo. I can't recommend them enough. So they did a study, and to be clear, the quality of the study, let me read this. Cohorts of vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals from Minnesota, 25,589 each, matched on age, sex, race, history of prior SARS-CoV-2 PCR testing, and date of full vaccination. So they separated 25,000 each, fully vaccinated and not, and they found that the Pfizer vaccine was 42% effective against Delta infection in July. Moderna did a little bit better. That's like a Swiss cheese condom, folks. 42%.
Is that it's 58% not effective?
I just want to be clear on the math.
Just want to make sure I
So-
got
and
that
that's
right.
today, by the way, right? We've seen Israel's a month or two ahead of us, is what they say. We've seen this kind of reduce over time. We'll see where it bottoms out at, but that's today, or when the study was done. That's not.
Yeah, the
a
Mayo
month
study
now,
came
2
from
months
a little
now.
bit, I think, about a month ago.
About a month ago, yeah. So see
I
what
wonder
happens
why
to be
people
today.
might be a little hesitant.
So you have a country in Israel. There are a lot of people there. And then you have a study with 25,000 minimum.
big.
It might be 50,000 as far as, actually, if I'm reading this correctly. And that's across a variety of race, races, genders. I don't even know if they include a non-binary. Maybe that's the wonder of natural. Maybe everyone at the VMAs are immune.
True.
We just didn't know.
It's not anybody's that
benefit.
COVID just shows up and goes,
Or they have a little bit of everything.
They have a little bit of everything.
I'm willing to bet.
It's just a witch's brew of Lil Nas and COVID. All right. So this is my question to you, to everyone out there. Look, if you've been vaccinated, you guys can comment below. It's one of the best things you can do for the algorithm. Smash that like button. If you've been vaccinated, what has your experience been like? If you've not been vaccinated, what has your experience been like? And I want to know if you have caught COVID or not, whether you are vaccinated or not. Just list your status and what happened. Because we now have a sample study of 50,000 people in an entire country in Israel. And this matters. Why does this matter? Because it matters how you move forward in a pandemic. It matters the steps that we take going forward if at least one of the vaccines is only 42% effective against the new variant. This matters. It's not anti-science to say, hey, these numbers are alarming and science is changing. What do we do? Don't just change the definition of protection from a vaccination.
Yeah.
We need to figure out the most effective way forward. But we can't because science has become a religion. And one of the tenets of that religion is this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated, despite the fact that many of you got that vaccine and you thought, well, you know what, at least I don't have to worry about the unvaccinated because I can't catch it. Well, they're saying that's not true now. All right, we're going to talk about this and more with my next guest who's coming up. We have a stinger, Ben Shapiro. Mr. Shapiro, how are you, sir? Is he playing Call of Duty on his...
Wait, is that Steven Crowder? Guys, is he alive?
I'm mostly alive, barely.
Oh, okay.
Don't make him sneeze.
Wow. Well, this does come as a shock to me. I mean, frankly, I thought that it was going to be one of your co-hosts who is now the host. So,
well, I guess
I'm glad to see you. I'm glad, that's good.
You just put out so many hits on random Gentiles you can't keep track, and you thought I was going to be buried with those bodies in a shallow grave. By the way, Ben, don't be so lazy.
In how I do this, I am somehow able to cave-in chest walls from abroad. It's very strange.
Your mind powers.
You did it with microwaves and gave me Havana syndrome. So, this is something that's going around right now. We won't even talk about it. No, and now I'm sick today, no doubt because of post-surgery. My immunity is probably compromised. But no COVID. It is remarkable. I have been sick 3 times throughout this whole pandemic, which is rare for me, and I still have not gotten the COVID, which is bizarre.
Well, you're immortal. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
It is.
Nothing can kill Steven Crowder. Nothing. They can put a rod in his chest. He can get a really bad cold. Nothing can kill Steven Crowder.
I have 3 rods in my chest, and they're actually titanium because they were like, you're a fat son of a bitch. We can't just put steel rods in here. So I had to pay extra for 3 titanium rods, and I believe they're bulletproof, which we are going to put to the test once I get the insurance waiver. So you do have a new book, The Authoritarian Movement, which is is that available right now?
Yeah, that's been. I know you've been out of circulation for a while, but that thing's been out for like 6 weeks, dude. Yeah.
Oh well, yeah. No, I have a whatever the opposite is of a Google alert. I have a Google mute for Ben Shapiro. It's a
smart move.
Yeah.
I actually have one of those too, because honest to God, I'm really annoying. So
yeah, and then I also have one for Bing, which I don't even use, but it's just for safe measure. But then every now and then, because I have an old computer, because we don't all have Ben Shapiro money, that little son of a bitch bent back paperclip comes up and is like, "Do you know what Ben's up to?" I'm like, "Ooh, paperclip." So let me ask you this: last week, Joe Biden, and we just talked about this, announced that companies with more than 100 employees have to mandate the COVID vaccine. That, I guess, so you at Daily Wire, I didn't know this. Do you have over 100? You guys have over 100 employees?
Yeah, we have like 200 employees, yeah.
Okay. So what are you guys going to do?
So nope. The answer is no. The answer is that we have lawyers at the ready. And as soon as the actual regulation drops, then we'll have to see what the legal analysis actually looks like in terms of how you file the lawsuit. But there's no question we are going to be filing the lawsuit because there is no constitutional authority to simply use OSHA rules to basically say to every company in the United States that you have to either get your crew vaccinated or test them every week. First of all, it's really ineffective policy. I mean, I heard you mentioning a minute ago the stats about natural immunity, which of course is very much true. But it also happens to be the case that if you are going to limit, if the idea here is that you have to limit exposures by people to other people, you actually want to start with small businesses, not large businesses. Right? Large businesses have a lot of space. Like our offices are actually very, very sizable.
Okay, I see what's going on here. This is another example of too big to fail. The big guy, Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire, trying to cripple the office with 15 people here. It's not going to work on me, Ben.
This is actually the point, is that for Joe Biden, the goal here is to actually benefit the biggest and not the smallest.
Right.
Meaning that the mid-sized companies are the ones who are going, we're not going to do this. And it's like Amazon that's like, sure, we'll do that.
Right.
Because Amazon can afford to spend $50 per employee per week.
Right.
They can do that. We have 200 employees. Let's say half of them are not actually vaccinated. According to this new mandate, we're supposed to spend $50 per week on every one of those employees, all 100 of those people. That's $5,000 a week, which is, $20,000 a month. That's not like a tiny chunk of change. That's
right.
Over the course of a year, actually some fairly significant money. But put aside the money, on principle, we're obviously not going to do this because, number one, I'm astonished by the willingness to undermine the efficacy of the vaccine put out by this administration. So I got vaccinated pretty much as early as it was possible to do so. As you all know, I am like a huge vaccine advocate. I think the vaccine is fantastic. I think it is a miracle of science, and I think that pretty much everybody.
But go ahead.
I think that it is. I think it is fantastic. I think that everybody, pretty much, who's above the age of 20 should take it. I think if you're between the ages of 12 and 20, I think there's a good case for 1 dose, but not 2. I think if you're below the age of 12, there's then you start to get in real dicey territory.
Yeah.
I think that you should assess your own risk. However, because I'm an adult and you're an adult, and you get to make these decisions by yourself.
Right.
In the same way that everybody gets to make those decisions by there was even a case that wasn't super true before the vaccines, but now that the vaccines exist, you can take one, and once you have taken one, you are now safe. And it drives me up a damned wall to see that all the people who are the most worried, all the people who most want to control other people's lives, are the vaccinated. That makes no sense at all.
But it does make sense when you understand that the vaccine doesn't protect you against, for example, the Delta variant. When Mayo shows that it's only 42% effective.
Stephen, it doesn't make any sense because it does protect you against the things I care about. Like, I don't care if I get a flu every year. I don't care. I take a flu shot anyway, but I don't care really if I get a flu. I don't care if I get a cold. I don't care about getting an infection from a virus that is going to take me out of work for one day. I care about dying and hospitalization, and the same thing for my parents, right? I care about my parents dying. I don't care about them getting a diagnosis of COVID. I care about them being hospitalized or getting dead from COVID. These are the things that I care about. And the truth is that when you look at the waning stats from Israel, what you see, for example, with the Pfizer vaccine, is that you're correct. The infection protection against COVID from the Pfizer vaccine went from something like 90% down to about 40%. But the hospitalization stats went from about 98% protective to about 91% effective. And the death stats went from about 99% effective to about 97% effective. So in other words, you're not going to die, and you're really not going to get hospitalized if you take the vaccine. The reason that the numbers are higher among the vaccinated in Israel is because Israel's vaccination rates are so high. So that means that just of the subpopulation, a huge percentage of people are vaccinated, and a very small percentage are unvaccinated, right?
But I remember a very long time ago,
it's still disproportionately unvaxxed.
Right. And I remember, just to push back a little bit, I remember a long time ago when we were on the show, I said, look, the number that matters, and what you're saying now effectively is deaths per capita. I said, I don't care about cases. I don't care about when we're just talking about hospitalizations, because those numbers can be manipulated, right? Because you have hospitals that basically say, all right, we're going to admit you, look, we're short-staffed. I said the deaths per capita is a number that matters. And I remember you saying, well, that number could end up changing. And so, but I agree with you now. I think the deaths per capita are very important. And I think that that is an important metric when we're dealing with the vaccination. I do think that it is alarming, however, because the change of the definition of success with the vaccination. And this is where we come into a problem with the mandate, right? Where it was, if you get the vaccination, you'll be protected against, you won't protected against the virus meant you won't get the virus. And then they changed it in the dead of night, saying, well, you won't get serious symptoms from the virus, which granted is good. It's a good thing. My issue here right now, though, too, is this whole vaccine discussion, whether you're pro-vaccine discussion or whether people choose not to. And I understand the points that you're making. There is no treatment for people who already have COVID. And that's been politicized. It doesn't exist. If you have COVID right now and you go to the hospital, they say, go home, come back, and we'll toss you on a ventilator. And then anything that people talk about is discussed as an alternative treatment, right? We heard that about ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. I'm not making any claims. What I'm saying is, hold on a second, alternative to what? It's not alternative to anything, because they don't give you anything at the hospital.
There are a few things that there are, like monoclonal antibodies are pretty effective in the first couple of days that you use them.
Sure, which was dismissed as quackery last year.
It was, and then Biden suddenly was mentioning it.
Right.
So, Stephen, I'm coming at the same point, but from a different angle than you, almost an opposite angle. So my point is that if you're vaccinated, so Joe Biden said two things in that speech that are in direct conflict with one another. Mm-hmm. He said, if you're vaccinated, you're safe.
Right.
And then he said, we need to protect the vaccinated from the unvaccinated.
Right.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Right.
I'm vaccinated. I literally stopped caring about whether anyone around me was vaccinated or masked or anything the minute I got vaccinated.
Right.
I stopped caring about that literally that minute. My parents too, right? Who are like, I'm not at serious risk. So the truth is I wasn't like super concerned I was going to die anyway. I'm in fairly decent shape and I'm young. So I really wasn't that worried. Right. But my parents are 65. And so I was a little more worried about them, and I was in constant contact with them throughout the pandemic. But the minute they got the vaccine, it was Katie bar the door. I mean, we went to big events. We were going out indoors. Like, it was over. It was over for us. Right? We were done. And it should be over for everyone who's had the vaccine. Joe Biden's policy is specifically designed to not accomplish that. Right. See, this is the thing that's amazing. What Joe Biden is doing is he's basically saying the reason that the economy is tanking, the reason that everything seems to be stagnating is because of the Delta variant. That's not true. The reason that everything is stagnating is because of your policy decisions. Because here's the thing. In lots of states, they have the Delta variant, heavier than they do in Delaware or in New York or in D.C., the places Joe Biden likes to hang out. But those places are wide open, and they're not seeing their economies tank. The top 10 best states in America for unemployment rate are all red states except for Vermont. The worst states in terms of unemployment rate are all blue states, all of them. So what that means is that this is a policy question, and Joe Biden is trying to redirect your ire away from him for shutting your life down and making your life miserable and trying to mask your kids and toward the unvaccinated. That's all this is. Right. Because tomorrow, like for me, I've been saying this for a while. The pandemic is over. It's in terms of public policy. It is not over in terms of like people dying of COVID. That's the honest to God. It is now your choice whether you wish to get a more serious form. You're getting immunity one way or the other. Right. Okay, here's your choice. You can get very durable natural immunity, which is better than vaccine immunity by virtually every study.
Right.
And that comes with the risk that you get a more serious case of the disease.
Right.
Or you can get the vaccine, and you will get a mild illness from COVID if you get a breakthrough case. But you're getting the immunity one way or the other. There's no third choice where you don't just get the immunity.
Right.
Okay. But what that means is that now, as a public policy matter, we have reached the end of the pandemic. Okay, there are no more things to do. And this is why what you have seen from the left is a consistent attempt to redefine to whom is the risk. So they're having a real problem with this because originally they were saying the risk is among the unvaccinated, and so we have to do something. And then all the unvaccinated were like, yeah, we know, and we don't care, which is actually true, right? Everybody who's unvaccinated that I know, everybody I've talked to who's unvaccinated is not worried about COVID. The only people worried about COVID are the people who should not be worried about COVID. Right. The only people unworried about COVID are the people who maybe should be a little bit worried about COVID, right? So it's completely messed up. And then, so what does the left decide on? What they've decided on now is the kids. What they've decided is that kids are highly vulnerable to COVID. Now, the only problem is you have to just lie. Right? In order to make that case, you just have to lie. You have to lie that there are good studies that say
and we just talked about Leanna
work.
Wen on CNN, who's a medical analyst who was the head of Planned Parenthood, and she wrote in January 2020 that the flu was significantly more lethal to children than COVID. We just quoted her from the Baltimore Sun. So did the CDC, and they changed that. So now they just have to lie and say this is a bigger threat than the flu to young children, according to all of the long-term data, which let's just play it safe. We don't have long-term data. Leanna Wen could have been wrong back then, and so could the CDC. But right now they're trying to act as though definitively it's more dangerous and it's a pandemic for young people.
Okay, and by the way, even if it were, the question matters. If it were more dangerous than the flu, let's assume that's the case, how much more? Are we talking 10 times more? Are we talking 100 times more? Are we talking like a little bit more?
Right.
Okay, because we don't shut anything down for the flu. So they're also playing with the numbers a little bit here in the sense that the infection fatality rate, right? The number of cases versus the number of diagnosed cases versus the number of deaths for this thing, really, really low. But if you have a really high denominator, you're going to have a higher numerator, right? If you have a lot more people who are affected by COVID because of Delta, you're going to have a higher number of kids who end up in the ICU. But the grand total, according to the CDC today, because I checked the numbers this morning, the grand total number of people in the United States who have died under the age of 18 across the entire pandemic, and this is a subpopulation of 73 million people.
Careful what you're about to say, because just so you know, we were not long ago, Gerald is looking at me, one of our videos, one of our entire shows was removed from YouTube for putting the image on screen from the CDC charts of the deaths from the flu in an average year and deaths under 18, I believe, for COVID. That was the reason that our whole episode got removed. So if that happens, well, you know what? We're
you can blame me for that.
We can bill you. We'll tag on to your lawsuit.
Bill me. You and Joe Biden can bill me for the.
But it's absurd.
But
yeah. this is the big problem now too. Is you can't fight back. Look, you and I disagree here, but I don't think that anyone would argue that either of our opinions here have been medical misinformation. We've simply talked about where the line is between freedom and individual choice. Something here that I think is pretty important, you just talked about the tests, right? This policy is you mandate, right? It's a mandate. You force employees to be vaccinated or test them every week. Have you tried to find tests recently? Because I could get them 3 weeks ago. I can't get them within 50 miles of where I am today. It's not possible. And when I ask these places, when are you going to get other tests? They say, we have no idea. It's changed dramatically in the last 2 weeks.
By the way, this is also wildly ineffective policy because let's say that you test all these people once a week. Why once a week? Really, why once a week?
Yeah.
You can test negative one day and 2 days later, you're positive. You've now spread it to the entire office. And so you test it on Friday?
Right.
Like, why? Also,
just like Greg Louganis on the diving board at the Olympics. He tested negative, and then he was having a little fun in the Olympic Village, does a backflip, hits his head, and no, there's some HIV in the pool.
I've always said that.
Yeah, Anyway, so here's my main point, and it's driving me up a wall. There is no end goal that is actually being named by any of your policymakers. Not one of them will tell you what the end goal is because their secret end goal is zero COVID. And they know that their secret end goal is not possible. Everyone knows their secret end goal is not possible. When all is said and done, this is going to become endemic. It's going to come up every year. There might be a slight variation. The variations will likely get weaker over time because that's what's happened with other viruses. And we now live in a world where every adult above the age of 12 has the capacity to get a vaccine and get nearly bulletproof protection against death, which is the number that I care about. And hospitalization is pretty damned good as well. So what exactly are we continuing to yell at people? But the real reason that Joe Biden is doing this is twofold. One is that he has to distract from Afghanistan, right? He knows that this is unconstitutional. He knows it's likely to get struck down. He has to placate his left-wing base. And he knows that we're all going to yell about this and then take our eye off the fact that he just surrendered an entire country back to the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. So part of this is just complete wag the COVID misdirection.
But
then
he
the other part of this
kind of
is that-
overshot it because it's so dramatic, the mandate, that it's almost like, well, it's not really a WAG anymore. This is on that same playing field because this is really bad. Hold on. Because of what you just said about the CDC, which could get us in trouble, we're going to continue this interview. The book is Authoritarian Movement, but Ben Shapiro, he's a lawyer, by the way, he is going to continue with us here on Mug Club YouTube. Thank you very much. We appreciate it, but because we have to actually discuss science and use the CDC and World Health Organization as resources, right now you can piss off.